But I'm still, for the time being, excellently with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. And things have been happening on the Reform UK front today, Isabel. Before we discuss these events, it's Howard Cox, who was the London mayoral candidate for Reform UK, and I believe stood in as an MP, a potential MP in Dover during the general election, and hauled Reform UK into second place, beating the Tories, if I remember rightly. So he's quite a key member of the party, but basically he's quitting. He's tweeted, "After much soul-searching, I have decided to leave Reform UK in the coming weeks. I will reveal my reasons in detail." And here he is making the same announcement in person.
Hello, I've decided to actually leave the Reform UK party. There are a number of reasons why I'm doing this, which will come out in the coming months. But the most important thing, by leaving the party, frees me up to talk about a number of political issues without criticism. I'd like to thank everyone who actually supported me in standing for London Mayor in London, and also down as an MP down in Dover and Deal. We should be proud of what we achieved, specifically in Dover, because we knocked the Tories into third place and we came second. So thank you for all your support. I look forward to seeing you in the coming months.
Isabel, now the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, who I believe you may have met, he appeared just about an hour ago on Jeremy Kyle's show, and he said that he felt that the reason, or he thought the reason that Howard was leaving was because of a kind of dispute over Tommy Robinson. That obviously Richard and Nigel Farage have said, look, Tommy Robinson cannot be in Reform UK. It's nothing to do with Reform UK. End of. Some Reform UK members rather like Tommy Robinson and what he stands for, and therefore I think it's made the situation quite difficult. Now, if Howard Cox is going to sound off about that, what are your feelings? And also, of course, this comes on the back of Elon Musk saying Nigel Farage is not fit to run the Reform UK, it needs a new leader, and so on and so forth. He doesn't have what it takes. I would say two things about Nigel Farage. He does have what it takes. He's an extremely courageous politician who has achieved miracles to get Reform UK where they are. That said, that for both him and Richard Tice, I think Tommy Robinson, the Tommy Robinson territory, is very awkward because while they dismiss him and say, no, want nothing to do with him, Richard, I think, called them, the supporters of him, that lot. That didn't go down well. There are a lot of members of Reform UK, shall we say, have got a lot more time for Tommy Robinson than Nigel and Richard have. You see the awkward territory we're talking about?
I suspect that if they are Reform members and they nonetheless are very supportive of Tommy Robinson, they haven't actually studied Tommy Robinson's background and his rap sheet, which is very, very extensive. I'd be the first person to sympathise with a political prisoner. You know, you and I have talked at great length on this show about a number of political prisoners in this country. I don't actually think that Tommy Robinson falls into that category. He's done a lot of very, very bad things, and he is not somebody that Reform wants to align themselves with. I don't know if where I genuinely don't know where Howard Cox stands on the Tommy Robinson issue. But what I can say, first of all, I should say I like Howard Cox a lot. I know him quite well.
Too. Nice guy.
And he was one of the people that was working really hard for Reform during the long years when no one was taking, well, when I say no one, very few in the establishment were taking the Reform Party and the potential it had seriously. And it takes a lot to sacrifice, months of your life to run for office for a political party that no one is really taking seriously. And I think he deserves huge credit for that. He's also been a really powerful campaigner on the fair fuel issue. So absolutely hats off to him for that. And I think that he feels that he hasn't had enough credit from senior colleagues for all the hard graft that he put in. And that was I think he feels that was rather unrecognised. And I think there's genuine kind of pain there. And I think that this is all part of what happens when political parties suddenly take off. You know, the Reform Party is dealing, and this is a very nice problem to have, with literally thousands of new members every week. And, you know, the party is inundated, not just with people wanting to join, but hundreds of people wanting to work for the party, thousands of people wanting to be candidates. And amid that maelstrom, you know, when there's still only a very, very small team of paid workers, unfortunately, some kind of diplomacy gets lost sometimes, and people's noses get put out of joint, and they end up feeling that they're not being kind of given the kid glove treatment that they deserve. And it's not because the leadership doesn't care about them. It's because the party leadership is so busy trying to build an organisation that is right now making all the running as the opposition, even though when the party is not the actual opposition, and is trying to build something that could genuinely become the next government. And in that, there are going to be a few casualties, and there have been some high-profile ones. And I think everybody is always sorry to see those long marches go. But sometimes people end up just being a bit offended by something or having a bit of a chip on their shoulder. And that is a source of great sadness for all concerned.
So in terms of Tommy Robinson, you know, I take your point. I mean, I understand people who feel that he is a political prisoner or he's in jail for political reasons. Because for whatever you say about his background, his punishment did seem to be somewhat extreme. So, you know, there's an argument there. I understand it. That said, Elon Musk, from across the pond, I think he has a romantic view of Tommy Robinson. He feels that he's a freedom fighter, sorely put upon by a repressive regime which he opposes, you know, that he's a freedom fighter and he shouldn't be in jail. So would you agree with me that that's probably the reason that's caused Elon Musk to send off that tweet about Nigel Farage? Because Nigel Farage, of course, is blocking Tommy Robinson, no ifs, no buts, end of, he's no part of this party. But as I say, Elon Musk has a more romantic view of Tommy Robinson, and would you agree with me that that's the reason he fired off that rather unexpected, shocking tweet about Nigel Farage?
I think that's exactly right. And actually, we heard on Talk on Mike Graham's show the following day when Mike interviewed Elon Musk's father. Elon Musk's father called Tommy Robinson something like a lovely man or a lovely lad or something like that. You know, perhaps because he's called Tommy, you know, there's some view over in America that makes him a kind of quite cute, nice Englishman. He isn't that. And I say this with the greatest respect to Musk, who I'm very glad is taking such a passionate interest in our politics. I genuinely am.
Me too.
Because it shows that he thinks it's worth saving here. You know, I'm so glad he's getting stuck in. But just as I don't always get everything right about politics, and neither do you, certainly not about American politics, it's quite difficult, I think, from across the pond to understand the complexities around, first of all, what Tommy Robinson has done in the past, and secondly, about the way he's been dealt with by the authorities, and thirdly, and most importantly, I think perhaps Mr. Musk has failed to understand the political reasons, as well as the ideological reasons, why reform can have nothing to do with Tommy Robinson. It is politically far too toxic for the party to do so. So, yes, it's difficult. And no reform does not want to spend its whole time talking about Tommy Robinson. And I think that perhaps Mr. Musk just doesn't fully grasp those kind of niceties. And why would he? He's in America, and he's the world's richest man. He can say what the hell he likes, and he sure as hell is doing so.
I mean, he's not a politician. You're exactly right. And don't forget, Americans always had a very romantic view about the IRA as well. They thought that they were courageous freedom fighters, as opposed to people who bombed babies in shopping centres. So it's not an unknown syndrome. But do you think, we haven't got long to go, but I mean, do you think Elon Musk is becoming slightly unhinged? Do you think that maybe even Donald Trump might tire of his antics?
I think it would be a very good bet that those two will fall out, and quite possibly sooner than later. Neither of them actually need the other, do they? No. So I think probably that will head to the buffers at some point. I don't think he's become deranged. I think he's just mouthing off, and he'll change his mind next week.
He's a disruptor, and he enjoys it. You're absolutely right. Listen, unfortunately, we've got to come to the end of this excellent hour, but always a pleasure, Isabel, and we'll meet again tomorrow night. Isabel Oakeshott, our brilliant international editor.